Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today on the website of French auction portal Intershare, we're going to have a look at some violins and bows that are going up for sale as part of an auction from Aponem Atlantique auction house, also based in France. This is a new auction house to me. Looks fairly interesting. So this is a general sale of kind of antiques, but there are about 30 or so violins and bows, so I thought it might be interesting to look at. Looks like the buyer's premium is 27% for this sale, so whatever the final hammer price, you need to add 27% on top. This auction is finishing on May the 15th. It's the 13th today, so a few days left to go. I'll put a link to the catalogue in the description. If you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, like, comment, turn on notifications, etc. This is a French auction, so do bear that in mind if you are looking to bid and you are outside of France. If you are elsewhere in Europe or elsewhere in the world, it's worth checking out the terms and conditions, shipping, etc, etc. So without further ado, let's have a look and see what we have. Like I said, not too many items up for sale this time, so let's see what we have. Right, first of all, we've got a violin with the label of Layanti, two-piece back, 356 millimeter length back there, €1,500 the estimate. Kind of interesting front and F holes there. As the back there looks fairly standard. Some pictures of the side. The scroll looks fairly normal. There's the Biziak label in there. So yeah, difficult to tell what's going on there. Doesn't really look like the kind of usual caliber of Biziak that we would expect, but you never know. I would assume just a generic kind of 20th century violin there. Then we've got a violin with a Petrus Scarabotto label there, 1944 apparently, 358 millimeters length the back. This looks also fairly standard. I suspect a lot of this stuff is probably 20th century Eastern European at this point. Might well be good violins in their own regard, but probably not what they are purported to be by the label. So got a bow here, presume a violin bow there by E.A. Ushar, 745 millimeters length, 52 grams. Let's see if we've got many pictures there. Picture of the head there. Not the greatest of pictures, but could be an interesting bow. Got a violin here with a label for Joseph Guarnerius. Back in two pieces, 350 length of back. That's interesting. Quite a smaller size back. €1,300 to start. That is a very interesting looking F holes, quite long, quite Guarneri-esque. Yeah, I think saying it's 1725, a bit far-fetched. Once again, it looks like a kind of Eastern European type thing. I suspect that most of the things in this auction will be like that, but kind of interesting in their own right, and the estimate is not outrageous, I suppose. Right, it's a violin labelled Domenico Cerrone, 354 length of back, €1,000 they want for that. Once again, same kind of deal. All of this stuff looks to be 20th century, probably Eastern Europe so far. Got another bow here, cello bow, Pernambuco, with a Markov Vigneron à Paris, silver mounted, 712mm, 68 grams. I think so far bows potentially look a bit more interesting, but pictures like this aren't too helpful, to be honest, because they're a bit hard to see. Right, violin with a label Huathinthus Bertolazzi, 1947. Okay, 350 length of back there. And quite a nice back on that, actually. It's fairly interesting. Scroll a bit more kind of curious on that. It's again very difficult to tell, but quite an interesting one, actually, more interesting than the other violins so far, I think. So €1,000 to start on that one. Right, a violin labelled Paul Mogenot, and Grand Prix Paris 1931, 360 length of back. Once again, not anything super exciting, I don't think. €1,000 to start on that. Nothing too outrageous. Violin bow C Bazar, 46 grams. Okay, that looks a bit suspect. Violin with the label JB Colin Mazar, 360 length of back there. Worth having a look at some of these in person. I think this one looks like it might have some issues going on there. €1,000 to start on that. Violin with the label for Paul Sedert, 355 length of back there. Got it broken button there at the back where they say their loose head. Interesting kind of crackle on the varnish there. So we can see here that the neck is broken. €900 to start on that. Seems a bit expensive because that's going to cost you to repair that. Right, there's a bow here, winemaker in Paris. Okay, apparently 53 grams, €600 to start. Some funny things going on at the head there. So it's got Vigneron, a Paris, and maybe that's what Vigneron means, winemaker. I've never really thought about that before, so yeah, interesting. Right, a violin with the label Augustus Palastri, 1929, 358 length of back there, €800 to start. Once again, just looks like the same old kind of Eastern European stuff, I would think. On to the next page here. I think we're going to see much the same. Violin with the label of Derazi, €700 on that. Interesting double purfling. Not seeing anything too super interesting on that one, to be quite honest. Another bow, Colin Mazar stamp there. It's going to think some of the bows potentially more interesting than the violins. Violin with an iron mark, Gustave Viaume, €700 to start on that. Once again, not super easy to see what's going on with the pictures there. It's the violin with the label Tomasini Domenico, 355. Once again, I think we're still looking at the same kind of stuff, but difficult to tell from the photos. Silver mounted bow here, Louis Bazar, apparently. €400 to €600 on that. Violin with a label Arthur Parisot, 354 length of back. Looks like a fairly standard violin. Okay. Right. Violin with a Mark Remy Nicholas, 364, €400 on that. Looks in a pretty bad state there, but it does look like probably a French violin, kind of 19th century, but in a pretty bad state, unfortunately. €400, actually not unreasonable, but a very long length of back. Silver mounted violin bow here with a Francois Lot stamp, €400 to €500 on that. Violin with the label Orselli Enrico, 1937. Once again, would probably just suspect Eastern Europe, but you really never know, because I've seen some violins like this for sale in some auctions, and I would have assumed that they were probably from Eastern Europe, and it turns out that they were actually correct. So you've got to make your own mind up about these things. Violin, orange brown varnish, mark on reverse, condition report available, 357 length the back, 200 to 300 euros on that. Okay, interesting violin, quite cool looking back. I mean, this is one of the more interesting violins, I'd say, even from the front. Definitely needs a bit of work, but yeah, I'm not against that, to be honest. And 200 to 300 euros, it's like not an unreasonable price, to be honest, so that's kind of interesting. Cello bow here, 100 to 200 euros. Once again, looks fairly interesting. Another violin with a label for Sesto Rocci, 1974 on that. One of these ones where I think you'd really need to look at it in person, but looks kind of, in a way, interesting. Not any no estimate on that one, so that's a bit strange. Another violin here with a Paul Bish label. This looks very low level trade instrument, this one. Another bow here, unsigned. It's one of these kind of older kind of 19th century bows with that bone button and open trench frog. Violin labelled Joseph Klotz Senior, Mittenwald. Don't think there's anything particularly exciting or Klotz related about that instrument, I would have thought. Violin with a Strad label there, looks pretty generic, I would say. Another violin here with a Biziak label there. Once again, looking fairly generic, I would say. Another violin with a label number 354. Let's get another generic looking thing. Got a few more things left to go. Student violin without label, 360 length of back. Violin label Joseph Riedel. The student violin here. Few more, and I think we're getting close to the end now. Violin without label, 33.5, so that's a 3/4 size violin there, 50 euros, that's fair enough estimate there. And right, no estimate on this. Georges Apparu, question mark, violin bears a label made by G. Apparu, 1955, 355 millimeters, kind of quite nice Quinary F holes here. Interesting to see there, interesting back on that, so that's slightly more interesting than some of the other items I think we've seen. But yeah, worth looking at these things in person. So there you have it. That is the auction for Aponem Atlantique, just over 30 or so violins and bows. I suspect most of them are probably from Eastern Europe, but you never know. A couple of fairly interesting ones here and there. So I'll put a link into the description as always. Check it out and see what you think. Thanks a lot for watching as always, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.